Should you buy Dragon Ball FighterZ for the Nintendo Switch? That's what we're going to be talking about today. As you all know, I kind of built this channel on playing Dragon Ball FighterZ for Nintendo Switch. I had a lot of fun with it. It's actually one of my most played games on the Switch. I have currently over 2,000 hours on the Switch version of DBFZ. Across all the versions of DBFZ that I have, the Switch version is the one that I have the most playtime with. And I do currently own the game on Steam and on PlayStation 4. That's actually what I'm running it on right now, the PS4. But what we're going to talk about is if you're new to Dragon Ball FighterZ, is the Switch version a version of the game that you're going to want to check out? Particularly if you have the other consoles. Let's begin with the graphics. Visually, Dragon Ball FighterZ on the Nintendo Switch is not so different from the other versions of the game. Steam is definitely the best as far as visuals go. PS4 would be second. Switch would be last, but that's not necessarily a negative for the Switch because the Switch still looks amazing. I guess considering the art style, it's kind of hard to go wrong. I would say it's not that different from the other versions simply because of the art style, but having said that, there is a noticeable downgrade. Particularly during a fight, you will definitely notice the resolution dropping pretty dramatically, especially if you're playing in handheld mode. But to me, that's not really a big issue. I never really found it an issue. The game itself stays pretty constant in terms of performance. So there's not too much difference in that regard. The Switch version does include everything else that the other versions include when we're talking about DLC and story content and all of that stuff. All of that stuff is included in the Nintendo Switch, so you're pretty much getting everything except for one option, which is actually a pretty important option. We'll get into that in one of the next points. So the next point is it playable? Well, I mean, I just told you I've got like 2,000 hours on it, so yeah, it's definitely playable. It's more than playable, actually. Let's compare it to, say, something like Naruto, or actually, I don't have that much experience playing Naruto Ultimate Ninja online on the Switch, but I do have a lot more experience playing Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles online, and I would say the online for Hinokami Chronicles on the Switch in particular is pretty horrible. Pretty horrible. Compared to that, DBFZ has rollback. It doesn't actually have rollback, but I'm just saying compared to Demon Slayer, it does. So for the most important part, and what most people who are considering the Nintendo Switch version are going to be wondering about is the netcode. So as is the case with the other versions of Dragon Ball FighterZ, the Switch version does obviously have delay-based netcode. That's obvious, but does it compare to the quality, or well, I don't know if quality is the word to use here, but does it compare to the delay-based netcode on the other versions of the game that are currently available? And the answer to that is unfortunately going to be no. Is it playable? Yes, but the online is noticeably worse on Switch than it is on the other currently available platforms. So I would say on PS4 you can generally have okay connections. On the Switch, you're going to be looking at generally 4 frames and above of delay. Generally, that's usually what you're going to run into. Usually on the Switch, you're going to run into 0 bar connections. It's very rare to run into a green bar connection, even more so to run into a blue bar connection. Yellow bars, you might see them every once in a while, but usually you're going to be running into 0 bar connections, unfortunately. And that's even taking me into consideration. I use a LAN adapter for the Nintendo Switch, and it makes nearly no difference. It makes a difference, especially if your opponent obviously has a LAN adapter, because occasionally I run into people who I suspect may be using LAN adapters because we end up playing in a stable 2-frame connection on the Nintendo Switch, but that is extremely rare. Extremely rare. However, on the PS4, you can get that every few matches if you filter out the bad connections. Unfortunately, you don't have that option on the Nintendo Switch for some reason. I do not know why that is not an option. Like, here, let me go to an online match. I'll show you the option right now. Casual. See this right here, connection quality. This does not exist on the Nintendo Switch. See how I can filter out anything below green bar? That's what I do when I'm on PS4. On Switch, you don't get this option. It's like it's not even there. I don't know why, but yeah. So as far as the online goes, I would say if you have a Nintendo Switch and you have a PS4, just get the PS4 version, obviously. If you have a Nintendo Switch and you like Dragon Ball, I would recommend Dragon Ball FighterZ for the Nintendo Switch if that is your situation. I think Dragon Ball FighterZ for the Nintendo Switch is still a very fun game. It's extremely playable. It's extremely fun. Like I said, I've spent over 2,000 hours on the game. It's one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had, even though, you know, the online can sometimes make you want to rip your hair out for how fucking bad it is. And finally, let's talk about rollback. We all know rollback is not coming to the older consoles. Obviously, that includes the Nintendo Switch. So when rollback does become available, I'm going to be switching to Steam for the most part, at least on this game. Even though I don't really like playing games on Steam, but you know, if rollback is going to be a thing for Dragon Ball FighterZ, then I don't see how it's even going to be feasible. How it would make any sense at all for me to play DBFZ on any version of the game that does not have rollback. So should you buy Dragon Ball FighterZ on the Switch? Well, for one, that's your choice. Two, I think if you have another console, just get it on the other console, because generally you will have a better time and the player base will be a lot bigger. Yeah, speaking of player bases, let's take a look at the lobbies for PlayStation 4. Let's take a look at the US West Coast region. And I'm sure the East Coast regions would be probably double this, because this is what it's like on the Nintendo Switch. Alright, here we go. See, actually there's less here than I thought there would be, but generally this is what it's like for the PlayStation 4. We have two lobbies. One is full and the other is half full. So 64, 32. On the Switch, about right now, there's probably only one lobby that has anyone in it. Well, I'm talking about the West Coast region anyway. There would be one lobby, probably about 30 some people in it, and that's it. So you got more, like triple the player base here on the PS4. On the freaking let's go to the US East Coast. I bet you 100% there's gonna be like triple the player base. There always is on the Switch, so I'm sure it's the same thing on PS4. Look at that. Holy shit. Oh man. Look at that. God damn. That's a lot of fucking people. I wish this many people played on the West Coast lobbies. I don't know what the fuck is going on in the East Coast. Like, do they have jobs at all over there? Do they do anything other than play video games? I say that as I'm making a video on video games. Alright, anyway, so yeah, so that would be my recommendation. Get DBFZ for Switch if you don't have other consoles, but get it on other consoles if you do. But one of the strange things I've noticed with the Nintendo Switch and the PS4 versions is sometimes the Switch version online tends to be more stable than the PS4 version. What I mean by that is simply just that even if I run into a green connection on the PlayStation 4, the connection tends to go from, let's say, 1 frame to 5 frames, back to 2 frames, up to 4 frames, down back to 1 frame, up to 6 frames, all in like the span of freaking shit, what, 30 seconds? And or even less than that. And it'll do that throughout the entire match. Like, it makes it almost unplayable, and it feels like a lot of the times when you push something, it feels like you don't push it at all because nothing happens on screen. And that happens to me so much on the PS4. On the Switch, that doesn't tend to happen at, like, let's say the delay is set to 4. It'll stay at 4, generally. You know, it won't jump around. I mean, it does that sometimes, sure, but not as much as it does on the PS4. I don't know why that is, but that's been my experience. This is Switchblade, 1 and out.